Hello, everybody. So this is a new African concept, and bringing to you this program dubbed "The Voice of Reformation." And in this particular series that we'll be having, we'll be looking at the school of values. The school of values, and these are very relevant stuff we'll be talking about. So definitely stay tuned. In today's introductory session, we have with us Joshua Ponsafo. Yes, to help us through this. You're very welcome, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Great. So today, like I said, we are going to be looking at the school of values. Now you may be asking, what exactly is that? Josh, can you help us out? What is this all about?
All right. Thank you very much. And it's great always being on such platforms to have discussions, especially that borders on national transformation or nation building. When you take a casual look at what is going on in our country, you could see that there is that generating tension that things must change. Yeah, and we've always been saying that wrong diagnosis of the problem ultimately leads to wrong prescription. Yeah, so it is our quest to more or less give right understanding so that based on it we can proffer sound solutions.
Right.
Yeah, so back to the pivotal question you gave, that what is all about these values we've been talking of. Let me start it this way, though I want to ultimately link it with the subject of national transformation or nation building, because that happens to be the heart of what we want to advance. Yeah, but basically when we talk of values, or you can call maybe value systems, they are more or less a set of elements or principles that an individual imbibes that helps him to reach the goal that he has set for himself. So the value of an individual is based on where he wants to be, then he prescribes those values or those set of principles and it takes him there. By extension, at the corporate level, it becomes, normally we call it organizational culture, or the culture of the organization. When you go to the offices, you may see vision statement, mission statement, and then core values. Yes, many people think that it is just for administrative purpose. It's just on the wall. The core values means that the foundations of this particular organization rests on these values. And that is what determines whether it becomes successful or, shall I say, it fails. And on a broader note, on the national scale, that is also called maybe cultural DNA, or the culture of the land. So in short, at the national corporate level, we can still call it values. So when we talk of values or value systems, they are a set of lives or principles that an individual or an organization or a country imbibes for itself and intentionally cuts it. Yes, sometimes you can have it on paper and it will be passive. There are many organizations you go and then they've written teamwork is one of their core values. But if you're a visitor and then you spend even 5 minutes there, you realize that there is absence of teamwork. Yes, but on their core values, they have teamwork. So the value itself is not what you profess to have, but rather what has been instilled in you and then you present. So values are the litmus test, or it is the foundation that determines the success of an individual, of an organization, or by extension of a country.
Wow. That is very profound, these things you are talking about, and I do hope that they are not new to you, and if they are, thank God you are here, right? So, that's amazing. You've spoken about values. There are a couple of key words you've picked from this. You've spoken of principles. You've spoken of intention. You've spoken of the fact that these are the things that get us moving to reach our objectives. That is amazing. What would want to someone may be asking, what exactly are you talking about? I think you made mention of a few things. Can you expound more on what these values really are? What are these? What are some of the examples? What kind of institutions? What kind of medium do we go? How do we get through this?
All right, that's great. We've already said that for you to be successful or for you to fail, it rests on the bedrock of the quality of your value systems. Mind you, as I said, not that which you profess, but that which you express.
Right.
That is what. So whether at a personal, corporate, or national level, it becomes that. Now, as you are saying, what more or less determines the value? So now I want to take more on the national, or yes, in a communal way. The value systems of a nation principally rests or comes from what we call worldview. And I think maybe we may have maybe another session for details on that.
Sure.
Yes, but when we say worldview, a common or plain word will be mindset. So worldview is the spectacle through which an individual views his world. So based on the worldview that an individual has, it then determines the set of value systems that the person also will propose, either intentionally or unintentionally,
Right.
for himself. So when you come to Ghana as a test case, for instance, we have what we call Ghanaman time.
Sure.
Ghanaman time just suggests that the way we do our things is quite different from the usual, or what we say will be called maybe the Western, approach, where it is respect for time. So the value we have in relation to time is that we do not regard or respect time.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether we have it in our constitution. It doesn't matter, whether you have billboards spelling, be punctual, obey time, be time conscious. Those things are passive.
Right.
When we look at how we are living our lives, from presidents to pastors to lawyers to even lecturers, everywhere we don't regard time. So one example or one principal example of value system in Ghana is lack of respect for time.
Right.
And that lack of respect for time then leads to its consequence, which if you don't choose, you make a choice, consciously or unconsciously, of the value systems. Then the value systems you have chosen as a people will then determine the place you will be on the scale of civilization.
Sure.
So Ghana and Africa is not advancing because of the weakness of her value systems.
Wow.
Yes. And there is this, very serious statement that nations, or the success of every nation, rests on the quality of her value systems,
Right.
and not on her geographical location or natural resources.
Right.
So it is all about value systems. Such understanding is very pivotal, because failure to understand it this way, that will make others on the other divide of this discourse to say that, oh, Ghana, we have everything, the only missing link is good leadership. Africa, we have everything. So they will make mention of natural resources, they will make mention of all those kind of stuff. We have gold, we have timber, we have cocoa, we have arable land. The only thing Africa needs, or Ghana needs, is that we will have good leadership, and then it will turn the wheels around.
Wow.
And that is a poverty or a weakness in the thinking or the understanding that it is all about leadership. Leadership is not the cause. Leadership is an effect of a cause. Take Ghana, for instance. This year will be 65 years for its independence. And primarily, historically till now, we have complained incessantly concerning poor leadership.
Right.
Is it not logical to think that then there will be a problem with the leadership pipeline? So instead of just folding arms or maybe religiously praying, and then expecting messianic leader to drop from the sky and take us to the promised land, then we must understand that no, I mean, because after all, these leaders, where are they coming from?
Right.
They are coming from within. So that's why there's this statement that a country's leadership is a true reflection of the values, the norms, the character of the citizenry, of the people. Yeah, so an example, as I've given, is lack of respect for time.
Right.
And what people don't understand or don't get or are ignorant of is the weight of consequence as a result of this. Let me just give you one or two examples.
Sure.
Lack of respect for time. What is time? Well, time could be money, time could be depending on everything. But when we summarize everything, time is life.
Sure.
And life is time. If you see an obituary on the wall, 70 years, this 70 years is a compilation of that years can be broken down into months.
Right.
We can be broken down to weeks, into days, into hours, into minutes, seconds, or even microsecond, nanosecond. What does it tell you? It means that when you see that, oh, this man died at 70 years, it is accumulation of seconds and minutes that made it. So life is time and time is life. So, and life does not give you what you necessarily deserve.
Right.
It gives you what you bargain for. And imagine that you don't, so if you don't respect time, it means you don't respect life.
Right.
And if you don't respect life, then your bargaining capacity or power is just minimal from the word go. So disrespect for time is disrespect for life, which also leads to, not getting much from life. The value of 1 hour cannot be compared to 200 bars of gold. So the problem is not so much as the gold of Obuasi or of Takwa or Pristia. No. The problem, is that we waste a lot of time by way of lack of respect for time. And then the second thing is that it affects productivity. In Ghana here, it is hard to plan, especially when you are engaging other people in it. You want to have 5 meetings in a day. The first one is to be, let's say, 8 to 10. You've calculated that, okay, you drive to the next meeting. Maybe you start from 12. I bet you that 8 to 10, it will start around 9:30. And if you are playing a pivotal role and you have to stay, it will eat into the next meeting.
Yeah.
Then it means that instead of 5 projected meetings, you are having 2. Maximum will be 3. And the surprising thing is that it has become overly glorified.
Right.
That even our leaders are doing same. Another example would be that of lack of value for human lives, which undergirds everything that we do. Statistically, just last year alone, we had more than 5,000 people dying, unfortunately, through road accidents in Ghana alone. They are only used for statistical purposes. 5,000 people died. Well, rest in peace, or may God save their souls. That is all. Because it is excellent that we have floods, we have disasters, we have road accidents year in, year out, and we are not making any pragmatic effort to curtail it. Why? Because we don't value human lives. Because we don't value human lives, a contract is given to a person. And then instead of plying the road well, instead of the thickness, the elasticity, all those parameters, he just does a shoddy work. And then within a year or two, even sometimes just months, the road gets destroyed with manholes, potholes. It leads to series of road accidents, and still the person will be confident walking around with no conscience. So these are 2 examples, and there are several. So to wrap it up, what I'll say is that the weight of value system is very serious. And until we change the values, if you want to change any system, you change the value, the values, and then it changes the system. So we are looking at changing without looking at the values. As long as these value systems are intact in Ghana, development to be far-fetched.
Wow. Wow. If you have been following closely, you would realize that there are so many profound points and nuggets that have been released in this presentation. I would encourage you that as you join us in this series, you get your notebook and pen and not just listen, but take notes, because we'll be learning. We'll be learning a lot.
Sure.
Because going forward in the various episodes that we'll be having, we'll be discussing the various examples of values, going in depth to understand what they really are, how can we practically go about it, and how can we really imbibe them, as he uses the word, to cause us to get to the place that we need to get to. Joshua has spoken about very important things. He's spoken of value systems. He's spoken about how they impact the advancement of nations, and he's touched on worldviews. Now, these are all very interesting words that we are not going to leave you hanging on. Subscribe, like, follow our page. Make sure you stick with us through these episodes, because we are going to be taking our time to touch on all of these words and topics to make sure that we do the justice to it. And it's exciting. Let me just ask you this final question, and then we'll be bringing this to an end. How possible is it to apply these values, and what kind of change can we look forward to when these values are applied? I mean, for instance, you spoke about the Ghana time, very popular phenomenon. Is there a time where we can actually say, I am going for a meeting, it's slated at 9 o'clock. I get there at 9 o'clock, and I'm probably even late for the meeting. And this, I'm talking about a gathering of Africans. What do you think about that?
Yes, I mean, that's great. More or less, it is a two-in-one question you've asked.
Yeah.
In terms of the institutions, which I think you asked in the previous question, that how does, because if we are talking about change, so to give a short answer to what you said, yes, it is possible, though many people don't believe, they just can't imagine that there will be a time that Ghanaians can respect time. But time consciousness is not a Western principle. There was a time that they too were just, I mean, victims like us. But now they've been able to upgrade, which means that it is possible that we can also do it. So the short answer is that it is possible. Now, a more detailed answer is how, or what are some of the practical ways we can engage. For us to understand the ways of engagement or the rules of engagement, then we must know of some of the vital institutions that we call the modulators, that more or less adjust or affect the value systems of a given community. All right, so one will be the religious institutions, whether it is the church that is of Christianity, or at the mosque that is through Islam, or any other religious institution. We are predominantly religious people. Think of the impact that the religious centers and institutions have on the minds of the populace. If anything is, if we are to go by statistics, it means that on a weekly basis, through the mosque on Fridays and through the churches on Saturdays and Sundays, the religious shall I say microphone is addressing more than half of the population of Ghana on a weekly basis. There is no system, there is no political party, there is no even institution that garners such weight of influence. So one of the roots in terms of to elicit change is the religious centers. If the religious centers get the right understanding, then they can ride on the influence and pipe it down to the people. Another route is that of our educational system. The average student spends a lot of time from kindergarten through to maybe the university or the tertiary, the secondary school, basic. You spend a good chunk of your time at school. Imagine if we build a system where we have our teachers doing justice by instilling it into these children, they will be able to have, new set of values in the system. So we have the religious centers or institutions. We also have the schools and educational, centers. And then we also have the home, which is, arguably maybe even the strongest part, because the people are raised in the home.
Yeah.
So the family system, if parents are to get the renewed mindset, and then they are teaching their kids in the right way, instilling the right set of values into them, then it's going to be great. Then also we can talk of the power of the media.
Right.
Technology has made this world a global village. So through media, the various programs, then the various like movies and then all other stuffs, they can arrange it in such a way that, because once there is frequency, the mind works, or psychologically, once it is buffeted with a particular trait on a consistent base, it gets gradually into the subconscious mind, which then becomes unconsciously to the person does it without realizing it. So the more there is consistency from our various traditional and social media pushing these things, so at least if we are to get the religious institutions, the educational institutions as the schools, and then the media, and then the family system, these four basic pillars are the institutions that modulate in one way or the other, that affects the value systems, the tone and the textual value systems in a given country or nation. Now the practical ways, they are in three ways. We have what we call the propagation, then we have exemplary life and empowerment, and then legislation. Propagation deals with, just as we are doing, we are propagating. So the propagation is at the informational level, where through what we are doing and other necessary platforms or books or magazines or lectures, conferences, symposiums, workshops, empowerment staffs, the information, because the masses are predominantly ignorant of these things. So the more we pipe it to them, they begin to understand it. But that one alone, you may get some people who will change through it, but information alone is not enough. So the first is through propagation, and chiefly propagation through these four pillars that I've made mention of, to make it more effective. Then comes exemplary life. So as we are teaching it, then people must start living it, else it will only be theoretical. So especially then it comes the burden of leadership. So the teacher teaching it, the children must see it in his life or her life. The father teaching it must be, those virtues must be seen in his life, or in his life. It must be seen in the life of the mother. So when there is exemplary life, now the people or the children come in, they'll be able to see it, so that they'll know that what was taught is actually what we are living or seeing. Then legislation. Legislation is when it is passed into law, or shall I say policy makers then bring it on board and then straighten by way of rules. Legislation is important because we are human beings. There will be times that even when we know what to do, we may be tempted, or we feel the need to digress for that particular circumstance. Then because of legislation and the consequence of breaking that law, it can then put you in check. So this is the, shall I say, we call it the trinity, for change. Once there is propagation, and it must be insistent. The mind picks, information that is insistent, not once in the blue moon. So when we can just imagine the average child at home, virtues are being taught and instilled. He goes to the school, it is repeated. He goes to the mosque or church, it is repeated. He goes to the social media, it is repeated. He watches the television, it is repeated. These four centers, it will be difficult or very difficult that such a child will not be responding to it.
Yeah.
And on top of it, then comes the second level, which is exemplary life and empowerment.
Right.
So apart from being bombarded from these centers, he sees it in the life of the leaders. He goes to church, he sees it amongst the leaders. He goes in his home, he sees his parents doing it. At the school, he sees the teachers doing it. It sends a signal that this is the way of life. Then on top of it, there is legislation. So it has now been cast into rule as a law. And for that matter, even when he feels like digressing, the law will then put him in check.
Right. With
this, we'll be able to make it.
Wow. So we have had more than enough. We've had talk on how exactly we are going to be able to incorporate these value systems into our very fiber. We've spoken about the practical ways, the Trinity, as you'd call it. Yes, the Trinity of doing this. And more exciting, the possibility of change in our systems and way of life as Africans. That you can actually go to a meeting and they would actually start on time. That's right. Can you imagine that? This is a kind of Ghana in Africa we want to hand over to the next generation.
Okay.
I want to ask you, as you watch us, is this the kind of Ghana you want to hand over to your children? Then do endeavor to follow us, because we have so much ahead. This is the voice of reformation being brought to you by the New African Concept. If you have not followed our page or our YouTube channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment, share. Just let people understand this, because this is something that, as he was talking about, it takes a communal effort. Talks about you spoke about the institutions, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we're speaking about the church. He's speaking about the religion, family, education, the media. This is something that needs to be. It needs more hands on board to be able to get it done. And so it has been an exciting episode, as it were, and we are so thankful for being here, Joshua. Yeah, so this is a New African Concept. We'll be continuing with these episodes. Do endeavor to stay with us, and we'll be bringing you more exciting stuff. So going forward, there are 20 values. 20 values that we'll be getting into, yes, and helping understand what they are all about. So join us in the next episode. See you next time.